And now, Michigan Reimagined with Chris Buck.
So if you've driven by the Lansing Mall, you may have noticed some activity on site. And if you network or engage in social media in the Lansing region, you'll know that Greenwood District Studios is gearing up for a very big summer and beyond. Today we'll be speaking with the CEO and executive producer of Greenwood District Studio, the legendary Amaru. Welcome back to the show. Legendary.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad to be back, man. I need to get you a decorator because I need some of this in our studio set up right here.
Yeah, it's not a bad setup, right?
Yeah, I like it.
Best voice in radio, by the way.
Thank you.
Not me. So, all right, the mission, Greenwood District Studios. Tell me about what you're all about. How did you guys get started?
So the name comes from, and then ironically, it's the 100th year anniversary of the massacre that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. And I've known about it for a while because as a comic, I've toured through Tulsa and done Tulsa a couple times in areas around Tulsa. And so I knew the history of it. But I didn't understand the gravity of how much of that history the rest of the country didn't know. At the time, I had no idea that everybody didn't know. I thought it was a common thing, common knowledge. And then, coming into the Greenwood era and what we are doing, started to dive into a little bit more. And maybe I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, a buddy of mine in California, we were talking about writing a screenplay about Greenwood because we thought the story needed to be told. And then when we started our project, I'd say about 5 years later, had no relation. It was just something that just made sense. The history is being erased. How can we bring it back in the forefront? And with a little education, how can we introduce some cultural education at the same time? A little bit every day. When you come to Greenwood, the name alone, where does that come from? I had a conversation with a contractor that came, and for the first 20 minutes, we talked about Greenwood and its origin because he had did a little research, and it was a white kid. And he was like, I had no idea. I didn't. And then he asked me for more information. So afterwards, I sent him a link, and he called me probably about a week later, besides the bidding on the project, and was like, man, I had no idea. Thank you for that information. It was really enlightening. So it's a conversation that needs to be had because that's not the only thing. Greenwood, the burning of Tulsa, Black Wall Street, Greenwood, is not the only incident that's happened in this country.
Right.
They made a couple movies, one about Rosewood in Florida with Ving Rhames and some other actors. John Singleton directed it, but those are just the movies that were told. There was an insurrection in, I think, Wilmington, North Carolina. That government used to be run by black folks, and the same thing happened. They took the government that way. So we have some histories that we need to be speaking about and talking about that we avoid, and it is guaranteed if we don't know our history, we will repeat it.
And that's the mission, right? Is to be able to give a voice to this call.
Yeah, which we don't understand and know about, so that we don't repeat it. We don't repeat it if we don't know our history. And everyone else has their segment in society. When we go on vacation, we go to Chinatown, we go to Greek Town, we go to for that culture and to experience what they have to offer.
Yeah.
We create that, and it's a big stink. Like the conversations that are on TikTok right now about Greenwood is, for the most part, fantastic. But the conversations that are being had by the people that are either jealous or just don't have an understanding of history is overwhelming, to say the least.
So you're working over at Lansing Mall.
Yes.
And so tell me about it. What would people see if they drove by there today?
Well, this past weekend we had about 20, which was our largest to date, 20 volunteers come in. We had about 4 or 5 from Chicago that came in. They're actresses in a couple of our projects that are coming out. So they came in. And we did our this time we focused on the outside, the exterior, and we started pulling up some of the stuff that they lay down to cover up the the foliage, and we started pulling some of that up and beautifying it so the mulch can come in, and we're going to create a community garden. It was just a beautiful thing to see, and you could tell a big difference. And people are finding out about it because I got a call from Florida, and the new owners of certain building in our vicinity that I won't mention right now, and asked us what would we do with that building. They wanted to know what ideas we had to do with that building. They're willing to sell it to us.
Okay.
Yeah, they're willing to sell it to us and or lease it. So it's a machine. It's a machine. And I always tell the guys that come in or girls that come in, whoever comes in, it's up to us to mess this up.
Right.
I don't say it like that, but it's.
Now, so it's the movie theater at the back end of the Lansing Mall that was vacant, correct?
Since 2014.
Okay, so we've got an 8-year-old, 7-year-old vacant movie theater that you are you renting it or did you purchase it?
That's not an easy answer.
Right.
So
you're using it. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and we're repurposing it.
Right.
And in the end, it'll be ours.
Okay.
We're independent filmmakers. So what people throw out, we look at it as how can we use this to save money, and so a lot of these buildings were going empty, and our careers were shut down because of COVID and George Floyd and et cetera. So I had to figure out something, I consider myself a problem solver and see all these buildings being empty, and the building that I'm speaking of that I won't speak of, I go in there all the time. And this daydream of what I would do with that building. For the last 9 years, I've done it. I got a couple credit cards to this place. And I'm looking at it every time I go in. I'm like, oh, this would be 2 sounds. Oh, my God. And then they call. This is literally a Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams.
Okay.
You build it, they are coming. The calls, the people. I got a meeting with a bank I don't even do business with. In a couple of days, that called me and was like, "Hey, we want to talk." I got something happen in a couple of weeks that is for the most part that I've been told is phenomenal. That if it happens, we'll be all right. So it's overwhelming, but very doable. I've been in. If you ever made a movie. That's stress.
Yeah. Right. So do you have access to the outside and the inside of this building?
Yes.
That you're working on now,
yeah,
right? Okay.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the foliage and the mulch and the community garden, but you're going to use this. Do you have a drive?
We have a drive-in.
Right.
We have a comedy club. We have a state-of-the-art editing suite. We're sponsored by Black Magic Design. So the whole bay will be Black Magic Design products. So editing, coloring, the whole gamut, Fairlight system. Then we have a bay that we're using to shoot a TV show called QM, a 30-minute comedy based here in Lansing. And then we have bays that we rent out. We're going to have a bay with a sick wall in it for podcasters to come in and do their podcast. And we're going to have some meeting space. And instead of turning one side into Greenwood, we are opting to possibly turn a piece of the mall into Greenwood.
Okay. So that sounds like a follow-up show that I'll call you back on in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, the building is occupied now? People are moving around and they're doing some work. And now that's all kind of behind the scenes though, right?
Yeah.
So the live shows and screenings of films and all that stuff, is that happening yet or is that coming?
Well, we had to postpone the original date for the ribbon cutting. This is our second time, and that's only because we had just submitted, so it's been 3 weeks now, submitted our rezoning paperwork to Delta Township, and our review is on the 14th of this month. So we're squared away in that aspect. So postponing it one more time, it was no big deal. This is going to be the weekend of the 4th of July. Okay. I think that's July 2nd. And so that'll be the ribbon cutting and the opening of the drive-in. The comedy club, we hope to open like a month later. Everybody wants that open. Everybody wants the comedy club, even the sheriff's department. He came by. Something happened, and the first guy came. I was like, "Yeah, so you know what we do here, right?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, we're waiting for the comedy club to open." I was like, really? Oh, he's like, yeah. We following you on Instagram. We waiting for the comedy club to open. And then, like, I guess it was his boss maybe a couple months later. He hadn't been in there yet, and I was like, so when you coming in to get your tour? And he was like, oh, I'm going to give you guys a couple weeks as if we just got. I was like, oh, we've been here for more than a couple weeks. He was like, oh, so I should come in and get a tour. I was like, yes. So he came in. He didn't want to leave. He said bye 14 times. so it's an infectious environment, especially if you're from this area and you've frequented this particular theater. It's nostalgia. It's the new idea of what it's going to become, and not just sitting here. And people have memories, and they just like to stare at it sometimes. And people have come in and dropped tears. Mm-hmm. It's been a sight to see.
So tell me about the setup for the drive-in. So the drive-in starts, you said, probably 4th of July weekend. Yep. And what are they going to see? What kind of shows?
We're going to see movies that don't last long in theaters, and that they're usually urban films. So our first one is going to be Love Jones with Jada Pinkett Smith and Lorenz Tate. You know, it's a classic. If you ask black folks what Love Jones is, you'd be like, yep, yep. And that's a lot of the requests that are coming in just off the rip. Love Jones, people want to see Love Jones. It's a great love story. And then some urban Hispanic films, some Asian films, some cultural films, so that we can start to learn and have some understanding of each other's culture, because that's the problem that I feel. And that's what Greenwood can bring to the table in regards to not only its story, but leading into other stories, other things that have happened in this country that we need to know about.
Now, will these people that are watching be in cars like the old school drive-in, or are they going to be sitting on long chairs?
We try to do a little different. They might have an option to have a spot next to them where they can come out and, put a little plastic tent up or something like that, something, so the family can get out of the car and breathe a little bit.
So how can people learn more about your schedule and everything that you're doing here?
Go to greenwooddistrictstudios.com and it'll tell you everything you need to know. You can sign up for the newsletter at the bottom. We have a link tree. You can go to TikTok. TikTok is what's happening right now. We got almost 100,000 followers in 3 weeks. That's crazy.
Well, congratulations, Amaru. I'm really looking forward to getting out there and checking it out myself and bringing friends and watching you evolve.
We're going to bring back the industry here in Michigan. Michigan will be a tourist destination, and in part because of Greenwood.
All right. Greenwood District Studios, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much.